Hey guys, Miss Marshawn here. So I wanted to record this and get this out to you earlier this week. I'm going to do it tonight and I'm going to post it tonight so that you guys have it, just so you guys know what's kind of going on. My daughter was COVID exposed earlier this week at daycare, and she'll be home with me tomorrow during our live lesson time. I will still jump on and I'll be on that time, but I can't guarantee that I will have like full attention, just because she's only 18 months old and just it's kind of hard. I don't really have another option to have anyone else watch her because of her exposure. So I just wanted to get these notes out to you guys so that you had them, had access to them, and could understand the material for this week. So the first thing I want to share with you is, like I've been stressing, every week, we have our presentation coming up. So that is the disease presentation. Last week I kind of went over everything that should be included in the slideshow, and this week I want to go over to the notes page that's going to be due on the 21st. The reason I have the notes page due before the presentation, everything that you write on the notes page is going to go into your presentation. So if you get that done, you're going to have all of your information, and then the presentation part of it's just going to be making it pretty, like making it, visually appealing. So I just want to make sure to share that with you. So I am going to share my screen right now. So this is, here it is. So this is that notes page. So the first thing you're going to do right up here, you're going to go find a source. So maybe it's the CDC website. Maybe it's like if you're doing celiac disease, maybe you go to celiac.org or whatever, like whatever you choose. Then you're going to find, an article or the group or whoever's writing it. You're going to write down all this information. This is the stuff right here that's going to go into that works cited page that you're going to go to Citation Machine, or you're going to go to ezbib.com and you're going to put that information there and it'll create a citation for you. From there, you're going to read on that website and you're going to talk about your disease. You're going to say what it is. You're going to say what body parts does it affect, the signs and symptoms, the causes of it. How does it transmit from person to person, or does it even transmit from person to person? How is there any way to prevent it? Is there any history about it? When was it discovered, etc.? Any other interesting facts about it? Like, are there famous people who have the disease, or, oh, they just released the newest cancer research, whatever it may be. So you're going to fill out that note page. That's a step-by-step process of exactly what you need to include in your presentation. So having that ready to go is just, it makes it so much more helpful for you creating your presentation, because you're not creating it from scratch. You know exactly, what I'm looking for in your presentation. All right, so for this week, what we are going over this week is the digestive system and excretion. This, I feel like, is one of the most easy body systems to understand, because we can actually feel digestion, the whole process, from eating food and then to, the excretion, whether that's urination or defecation. I feel like that whole process, you can kind of feel where most things are at there. And it's a little bit different than, your breathing or your heart, and because you don't really feel like your blood pumping through your veins. But this kind of feeling, you can kind of feel the whole way through. So it's just a little more familiar to us. So, all right. So with the digestive system, what we're talking about here is how does our body get nutrients from food? And so that all starts with our phases of digestion include ingestion. That means putting something in your mouth. There's mechanical digestion, which is chewing stuff up with your food, then the movement down your throat. Chemical digestion happens within the stomach, the enzymes in the stomach, the organisms, the bacteria, all of that, part of the chemical digestion. Absorption, which is going to happen in your intestines. And then finally, elimination, which either, potentially happens, from your kidney, through your bladder, through your urethra, or through your colon, so defecation. Biggest parts of the digestive system consists of organs that break down food, absorb nutrients such as glucose. So glucose we know as sugar. It's one of the main things that help to run our body. So the types of mechanical digestion is chewing, tearing, grinding, mashing, mixing. Most and all of that happens like with our teeth. Our teeth and our tongue are the very first stage of digestion. They're the very first organ, in our digestion process. Then next you have that chemical digestion, which again, I told you happens, starts to happen in your, starts to happen even in your throat, but for the most part happens in your stomach. It's all enzymatic reactions that help to improve the digestion of those carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, that we talked about back in the beginning in Unit 1. So how is our digestive system organized? The gastrointestinal tract, or the GI tract, as it's commonly referred to, is a tube. And then you kind of have this pattern here. So you have the mouth to start, then you have the pharynx, you have the esophagus, goes into the stomach, then it goes into the small intestines, that's the pink stuff, then the large intestines, and then finally comes out the rectum. Let's talk about the esophagus for a minute. It is approximately this long green thing here. It's approximately 20 centimeters long. It secretes a mucus, which helps move food from the throat into the stomach using movement called peristalsis. And the acid from the stomach gets in here, and that causes heartburn. So I personally had like really bad heartburn when I was pregnant with both my kids. And that's just like if that stomach acid keeps coming up into your esophagus, you just get this like burning sensation where sometimes it feels like you can't even eat. And there's an esophagus video down there that you guys are more than welcome to watch when you have the time. The next part is the stomach. So that's probably the main organ that we all think of when we think of the digestive system. It's this nice red J-shaped muscle here that stores food that you eat and breaks it down into tiny, tiny pieces. Down in the stomach, that's where your food is mixed with the digestive juices that have those enzymes that we talked about that helps to break down those proteins and those lipids. One acid, HCl, on the stomach kills the bad bacteria. Remember, but we do also have good bacteria in our stomach. And then the food that is found in the stomach is called chyme. Next, you have the small intestines. The lining of the small intestines have finger-like projections called villi, and they help increase the surface area. And so when they increase the surface area, that means they're also increasing absorption of food and materials. The villi are also covered in microvilli, so again, even more increase in surface area and food absorption. I'm going to go back to the small intestines for a minute. So one example of a disease that affects your body is celiac disease, for instance. So that is a disease that I have. What ends up happening is with celiac disease, the body cannot digest the carbohydrates within the stomach. And so they end up going whole into the small intestine and then end up damaging the villi. And so then the food ends up not being able to be absorbed properly, or any food at all end up being absorbed properly. And so that is the damage that it can cause. Next, you have the large intestines. And this accepts what the small intestines didn't absorb. And then lastly, obviously, you have the rectum. It's the short-term storage which holds feces before defecation. So the functions of the large intestines, obviously bacterial digestion, the ferment of carbohydrates. It absorbs water down there, and there's also the concentration of waste. Another part of the digestive system is the gallbladder. It's this little green thing over here. This stores bile from the liver and releases it into the small intestines. Very fatty diets can cause gallstones. Another organ we have is the pancreas. So it's this yellow thing right underneath the stomach. The pancreas helps to produce digestive enzymes that digest fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. And it also helps with regulating blood sugar by producing insulin. So when you talk about people who have type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes even, the pancreas is typically the organ that is having the issues because it's not producing either the right amount of insulin, so either too much or too little, to regulate the body to regulate the body to make sure that they're getting the right nutrients that they need. So this is why people with diabetes are on very strict diets, because their pancreas isn't working correctly to regulate their insulin. Lastly, so then moving on, now we have the excretory system. So this is the way in which our body removes waste and also any excess water from the system. So obviously we're going to talk about, defecation and the urinary system, but it's more than just that. We have to remember that we also get rid of water from our system through sweating. There's also, every time you breathe in and out, there's some water that goes in and out when you breathe. So these are all parts of the excretory system. So we have the kidneys, the large intestines, the liver, skin, and the lungs. Why is the liver important in the digestive system and the excretion system? So this directly affects digestion by producing bile. Bile it helps to digest fat in your system. So when you're thinking, oh, I ate bacon, or oh, I had a heavy avocado, the liver is producing that bile that helps to digest that fat. It filters out any toxins that are in there, and any waste, including drugs and alcohol and poisons. So a lot of times if you find that, if you hear about someone who's an alcoholic and they may need a liver transplant, that's because their liver goes into like hyperdrive because they're drinking too much alcohol, trying to, filter out all of those toxins. And because of that, their liver will no longer function properly. Next up, we have the urinary system. So the main function of the urinary system is to filter waste products and excess water from the blood, and then it excretes them from the body. Kidneys right up here, these two, they're kind of like right in the center of your back there, are they control the main action of the urinary system. So the biggest part of the kidneys is that they filter blood from the urine to make sure that it is able to travel back into the body. More than 1 million nephrons are in a kidney. These are the steps that happen within the kidneys. So the blood enters the kidney through the renal artery, which branches into the different capillaries. We learned about those last week when we learned about the lungs. Then it filters into the substances that pass through the renal tube of a nephron. Then the renal tube, some of the substances are filtered and reabsorbed into the bloodstream, and then others are secreted into a fluid. The fluid passes through a collecting duct, which reabsorbs some of the water and then returns it to the bloodstream. And then that fluid that remains in the duct is called the urine. That urine travels to the bladder, and then it is eventually excreted through the urethra. Next, we're going to move on to the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is a major part of the immune system. It produces leukocytes called lymphocytes. Lymphatic system consists of bone marrow, tonsils, spleen, and thymus. And then the thing that you need to remember with lymphocytes is, and this is really all we're going to focus on here in biology, is that they help to recognize pathogens and respond to them. B cells are made in the bone marrow and T cells are made in the thymus. B and T cells have specific receptors that only bind with certain antigens, allowing them to fight specific pathogens. And that is all I have for you this week. I know it's kind of really simple, really short, kind of basic to the point. Like, like I say every week in biology, I'm not trying to, test you guys. I'm not trying to push you guys like this. Like, biology is just really simple. We want to make sure we understand the basics of everything. And so that's what we're covering here. Again, tomorrow morning I will be on at 9 a.m. But it might be a little crazy. So I just wanted to make sure I got this information out to you. Have a great week and let me know if you need anything. Thanks.